Here we are, everybody. Warrior Poet Project podcast number 7. I'm here with Cory Allen, the second time guest, because he was so awesome the first time with his impromptu podcast. We said we have to do this again. 1 is not enough. 2 will probably not be enough either. So we'll have to be a mainstay. So how are you doing today, brother?
I'm good, man. I'm happy to be back. Happy to be back as a return guest on the lucky number 7.
Right on. 7 is a propitious number. What was it about 7? Was that something to do with the Bible? On the 7th day, the Lord rested? Is that why 7 is a lucky number?
There's all sorts of stuff sewn into it, man. But it's like anything, you know. It's like throughout the course of human history, it's only been 10 seconds, man.
Yeah,
talking about
we don't like a rolling start in here. You know, some podcasts you get some shit out of the way. We just like to fucking dig right in.
There's not that much time.
I hit Mitch Schultz right over the head within 5 seconds when he was on the last podcast.
But yeah, you know, that's throughout the course of human history. That's all things that we've done. You know, it's like we are symbol based creatures. You know, we create our entire worldview by symbol systems. And a tricky thing about that is that the symbols and meanings that we choose to abstract our worldviews from, they also have to go through the filter of our emotional system, our rationalization system, all of those things. So, you know, any of the symbology that we're putting into something, it's got all this extra stuff in there.
Right.
There's all these phantoms. There's all these ghosts in there, and you know, people seeing double, people seeing what they want to see, and then putting, you know, deluding themselves into finding things that have more meaning than they really have.
Yeah, you know, I think a great example of that is the fear of the number 13.
Yeah.
So they call it. I just had to look it up to get the pronunciation. I'm still probably going to blow it, but it's triskaidekaphobia. Triskaidekaphobia. It's Greek origin. I took some Latin, but not
you mean
great.
triskaidekaphobia?
Triskaidekaphobia. Yeah, exactly. But it's actual term for the fear of the number 13. It's why you don't see 13 in hotels. Why you don't see it in airline rows sometimes. You know, it's going 12. It's preposterous. Yeah. It's a number.
There's some comedian that has a joke. I don't remember who it is, but he says it might be Mitch Hedberg. He's like, you people staying on level 14 in the hotel, you know what level you're really staying on.
Yeah.
But it is true. I mean, it's preposterous. However, it is preposterous, but at the same time, it's like how magic works. And I don't mean magic, you know, in any silly sense of the word or like fantasy sense of the word, but in like the old school occult black magic type stuff.
Well, people
That's
believe
how that
it.
Stuff work. Yeah, is that you tell somebody and that you have the right symbols and you get someone to believe it, and then if they believe it, like things can happen. It's like the inverse of like a placebo effect.
Yeah, sure.
know?
Well, I mean, they've shown that in like the a tribal medicine man can tell someone you're going to die.
Yeah.
And they could be perfectly healthy, you know, and the autopsy will prove it, but they'll die.
Yeah.
They'll be like, shit, I'm dead.
Doubt.
You know, and he could tell that to a Westerner. The Westerner would be like, fuck you.
Maybe.
Like, I'm not going to die. Maybe. If he doesn't believe it.
Yeah.
If he doesn't believe it,
yeah.
you know. But belief plays such a key role in all of this, you know, and I really believe way more than people think, more than, you know, and that's an issue with the placebo effect anyways. I mean, I think to say that belief somehow is a cheaper effect than something else. Belief is the whole deal.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we are in a belief-based system, a belief-based universe. Belief is the real deal. Belief is what gets the grandma to be able to lift a car off her, you know, off a kid. Belief can get you to do remarkable things. I think, you know, I don't know if you listen to it as well, but Bruce Lipton's Biology Belief. I haven't read the book, but I listened to him on the Rogan podcast, and that was made a strong impression. I'm with that 100%. So belief in both positive or negative will manifest itself.
Oh, totally. And you know, the thing about any of that type of stuff is that it's the result. It doesn't matter how you get to something. It doesn't matter, you know, it's what happens. And like with that type of thing, if something happens, regardless if it was, you know, based on science or pseudoscience, or if it was a lie, no matter what it is, like if there was a result, then something happened and it worked. You know?
It's funny that people give it different grades of like, you know, it's almost like they forget the main point, which is that it worked.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then it's, you know, if it worked because you believed it, that doesn't count.
Yeah. It's like, dude, it worked. Who cares?
Yeah.
I read this great book probably like 15 years ago called is it, the like hyperbiology of mind body healing. Believe the author was Rossi, Rossi, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, it's basically just an archive of a bunch of medical situations where they've used placebo, or they've given them some this or that, and it's been documented where the body is healing itself. Even such in one particular case I've always found interesting was somebody that had cancer, and they had like really bad tumors all over their body. And they knew this guy had a matter of weeks to live, and the doctor came in and said, "Look, I've got this special," which is always sends my spidey senses tingling. "I've got this special new thing," and he said that if you take this, that you might die, but it could cure your cancer. And the guy said, "Well, whatever, I'm going to die anyway, so let me take it." He took it. His tumors started reducing in size, really fast. He was actually on his way to recovery. And after, I guess it was a couple of weeks, I'm kind of just making that number up, but after a short period of time, he was still in the hospital, and they told him, "Hey, you know what? That was a sugar pill. All of that was all mind-body healing."
Yeah.
And the guy, his tumors came back, and he died in like a week.
What a dick! you gotta fucking ruin it like that. But it's brutal for him, but maybe good for science. To kind of realize how powerful that belief mechanism is. We're just getting ready to do a clinical trial for Alpha Brain, and I've been working with the doctors, kind of designing the trial, double-blind placebo trial, and we're having to bring it out. I wanted to just do it for a week because, my results and the results from everybody else is you feel it right away.
Yeah,
I was like, no, let's just do it a week. This is crazy. Why 45 days? And he's like, well, the placebo effect is so strong at the start that you need to broaden it out, just really show the differentiation, that you're going to get.
Yeah.
When people enter a trial, they enter it thinking that they're going to have these dramatic effects, particularly. So we have to stretch it out a little bit, and then placebo effects eventually kind of weans off, and then the actual effect of the powerful nutrients that we're putting in it, presumably super powerful, are gonna show that they're show their efficacy over that amount of time. But it's just like, it's crazy that it's a known fact, and even on like the brain scans and like even on the stuff that you think would be not affected by your belief system, it is. And people just accept it like, oh, that's cool. But then again, no doctors, no people actually work with that mechanism to get their patients in the right frame of mind to use belief, to utilize belief, to heal their body. It's like, yeah, we know that it works, but we're not going to actually utilize it for any good. We're not going to train people in how to use their mind to affect their body. It's like they're aware of this phenomenon, and then they're just like, yeah, cool, yeah, that works, but fuck it, because maybe they can't make any money off it, or it goes against our normal belief system, which is very, tool oriented. Like, use this tool to create this effect. Is it
particularly in Western, but particularly American culture, like if there's not a thing that's causing the result, then people have not only like a hard time rationalizing and reasoning with it, but a very hard time paying with it, because we're paying for it, because we're always taught that in order to feel better, you need this thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, you want to feel as good as, this person, then buy this, this object, feel that way,
It's because people shuck responsibility for their own mind state. They like to think that, oh, well, I didn't have the right, X or Y, that's why I'm this way. Or, if only I had this, then I would have this result, when really so much of it is about the decisions you make about your own mind state.
Yeah, and that's the basis of capitalist culture, is having grown up in a way that you always feel incomplete, and that a thing is going to make you feel whole, and that's the part of the illusion of our contemporary society, is that a thing is going to make you feel whole and make you feel free, but it's not. But people spend their entire lives, most people spend their entire lives trying to make enough money, or beg, borrow, steal to get that thing, to keep getting things, to try and make themselves feel complete.
And things, and then I think there's also another risk going the other way, where you discard the value of things. Like, I don't need things, I just have love in the air. Yeah. And, like, there's a balance. Like, things are awesome, like, it's cool. Work for things, try and get things, but keep them in perspective.
Don't take them. That's the thing. It's all about taking life sincerely, not seriously. You know, and it's like a lama or a guru, or, you know, anything. You know, they can stay in a mansion, you know, but they can also have to be just as happy staying in a hut.
Right.
You know, and that's the thing. Is like I think that's how I feel about objects. It's like I don't care about any of them. I don't need any of them to feel grounded or feel like have you know, self-value or anything. You know, there's not that I have self-value anyway, but you know, it's you know, but I don't need them. You know, I don't feel any like I have one up on somebody if I got this thing. I just think
whenever you tie them you build them into something more than what they are. You know, like I mean, I think that's the issue. I mean, I think it's, you know, it's great to be able to have these things, but don't like a new car, for example. I had a photo up on my laptop of my dream car, you know, which happens to be a Maserati Gran Turismo, right? So, you know, I've built that car a couple dozen times, and it makes me feel good when I build it and I think about it and whatever. And it's, you know, some time down in the future. But, you know, the reason why I want it is it's a fucking beautiful machine, you know, and I'm going to smile when I'm alone and by myself and nobody's watching and I'm in that thing. You know, it's going to feel good. But I think a lot of people get those things. They're like, you know, imagining, oh, look what those people are going to look at me when I'm in this car, you know, or they're going to feel, you know, they tie in all these other things, and those things end up being empty. Yeah. You know, I mean, you can buy all the fucking cars in the world and it's not going to fill any of those emotional holes that you have inside yourself. You know, if that's what you're getting it for, any of that stuff, the house, the car, that's not going to make any difference at all. You know, I think I was talking to one of my friends, actually he's been on the podcast too, CK Chin, and he was telling me about a study they did where they measured the level of happiness of people 5 years after a major incident. And the two major incidents were winning the lottery on one side and becoming paraplegic on the other side. So a dramatically positive event, obviously winning the lottery, a dramatically negative event, which is becoming paraplegic, right? 5 years afterward, you'd think the lottery winner would be fucking super stoked, way happier, and then the paraplegic. No, the truth of the matter is both the curves changed, you know, the arcs went different, but after a few years, they ended up back at the same level of happiness, you know? It really didn't matter. There was enough, you know, each person had a different level. Some of the lottery winners were super bummed out and depressed, and some of the paraplegics were happier than ever, saying, you know, they'd unlock different meanings of their life and whatever. So
that's because anything that happens to you in your life is just, it's not particularly good or bad. It's just a pathway, and it's up to you to decide how you interact with that pathway. You know, there's a bazillion Zen koans I could talk about right now, but, you know, it's just like things will occur. You know, there's like our reality in our life is a collection of like events occurring in time.
Yeah.
You know, those events, the notion of them being good or bad is only relative to your mind in that time and space, in that moment, you know, and you never know how those things are going to change, what that's going to evolve into. And so, you know, like you say, the quadriplegic, they obviously, you know, losing your limbs is an incredibly traumatic and dramatic experience. However, ironically, they could see the value of pure existence that way.
Yeah.
You know, and somebody that wins the lottery that hadn't done any of this, you know, the hard work, you know, and figured out, you know, what's going on. You know, they win that and they get lost in a, you know, hall of mirrors, man. They're just buying stuff and paying stuff.
Sure.
And then people start lying to them because they want things from them. And so they're actually, you know, they've lost like integers of awareness by getting trapped in the illusion of materialism.
One of my favorite quotes is by Carlos Castaneda on this issue. He says, for the ordinary person, everything is a blessing or a curse. Yeah. But for the warrior, there are only challenges.
That's right.
And I think that's the way you got to look at it. Yeah. Whatever, there's a challenge to blessings and there's a challenge to curses. You know, there's a challenge when you get a huge blessing, like a boon, like the lottery. I mean, what a fucking blessing from the fucking universe that is.
Maybe.
It should be.
Yeah, I mean,
it should
you
be.
Never know.
But but it's a challenge nonetheless. It's an extreme blessing, which is an extreme challenge. Just like an extreme, what you would call a blight or, you know, a negative effect, like losing a limb. That's an extreme challenge the other way. You know, both are positive and negative, but it's just how you deal with it. You know, you have to take your warrior mentality and realize that just because it's good doesn't mean it's not a challenge.
Yeah.
It is. You're going to have to find a way to keep yourself grounded, to make sure that you're utilizing that gift in a way that's going to benefit your life, the lives of others, fill in with your kind of moral and social duty to the universe, so to speak. So it's just, and you generally you fall back on that quote for the bad things that happen. But I think one of the subtle and interesting parts of that quote is that he doesn't differentiate between the challenges that are caused from blessing or curses.
Yeah, and I think that the point I was trying to make earlier is that like with good things and bad things, relative to the perceiver of those things, like they're not really good or bad. Like the notions of good, bad, positive, negative, those things are all very, very base to me, in my mind. And you think, and you saying that winning the lottery would be a blessing. Well, it's just a new set of pathways, because you could win the lottery, and you could be, totally all good with the notions of materialism, the idea of spending. You could go, oh, great, I can retire. My family will be taken care of. I'm going to live a nice, normal, like upper middle class life, and then, and just enjoy the day and have my, sons and daughters all taken care of just in case. But then someone could go in the newspaper, see that you won the lottery, and come kidnap your wife and say, I'm going to kill her if you don't give me $3 million.
Right. It could incite. But I don't think it changes the fact that that's a true boon. A boon, which is, the definition of that is a gift granted from the gods. Well, obviously not the gods. It's some random chance. But, yeah. It still is a blessing. It comes with its challenge. It's like, all right,
that's a challenge. Yeah, that's
it does open yourself up to notoriety, which could cause, somebody to incite violence. But you're not really that much richer than a lot of other people who are in the country too. But I think, but I hear what you're saying. I think the notions of good or bad are up to you to determine.
Yeah,
and I think
that's it. Yeah.
You have to decide whether it's going to be good or bad.
Yeah.
But I do think some things are intrinsically good and things are intrinsically bad, and make it a little more difficult. I'd much rather win the lottery than lose a foot. Totally. I think I could deal with the challenges of the lottery a little easier than the challenges of the minus 1 foot. I do tend to like both of them.
It's weird that I think about this type of thing on a daily basis, that the patterns and systems that and reactions that humans have, to different things that happen, and the ways that they think that they should respond to that. And I always imagine, just what if you flipped that around? Because it's no weirder than how it already occurs, but if you just reverse that, it would be just as strange. But I like to look at it in order to show how the normal way that our universe operates is already strange as is. So say that, I was talking about, someone winning the lottery and a person comes and kidnaps their family because they were trying to extort money from them.
Right.
Wouldn't that be bizarre? That's just the fact that could happen is just as weird as the guy that loses his leg, and then someone reads about that poor person lost their leg, and then they go kidnap that guy.
Well, you're going deep here, Cory Allen.
But do you see my point? Is that it's if the responses that humans have to each other in certain situations is so bizarre as it is, that if you just reverse the roles, you can see how bizarre the normalcy is. You know? Where it's
well, we have socially accepted beliefs about all these different things, and they're socially reinforced, and it comes even from when you're a kid. I think it's important. When I have kids, I see these parents, and I think I've read about it, and I've also experienced it. You'll see a kid fall, and the kid will fall and then look up to their parents. Mm-hmm. And if the parents go, "Oh, you poor thing. Oh, poor baby. Oh, are you okay?" Then the kid just starts bawling.
Yeah, it's
oh my God, I'm dying.
It's like a soccer player and a ref.
Yeah, exactly. But if the parents "You're good, buddy. Get up," and the kid's "Oh, okay, I'm good."
Yeah.
And then that kind of affects their whole mindset to that kind of belief system. We're such we're so much creatures that rely on social cues from other people, and a lot of the social cues that are set up are just whack.
Oh yeah.
They don't need
almost all of them.
Almost all of them. Yeah. So then starting to identify, what is this social pressure that you're feeling, and saying all right, just because this is established doesn't mean it's right.
Yeah.
I can make my own verification off this. Getting, you get congratulations. And I think actually one of my good friends, Bodie Miller, talks about it the most. He's he defines his own success on the race, not by whether he won or lost, but how he actually raced. So he gets just as annoyed when he wins a race that he didn't race the way he wants to, and people congratulate him. People congratulate him, and they're like, inside he feels like, well, you shouldn't be congratulating me because I didn't do what I was supposed to do and what I meant to do and what I was, what would typify me as excelling in this race. I didn't achieve it. So, and then at the same time, other people will, be like, oh, I'm so sorry about that. Like maybe he'll ski out of a race that he was just fucking ripping and like skied it exactly the way he wanted, but his result wasn't good. And they're like trying to baby him and be like, oh, I'm so sorry. That's such a, and that annoys him just as much, and I think there's something to be said for that. Just really knowing yourself, how you're doing, what you're doing, and not necessarily relying on anybody else to tell you, what your social, how you should feel about some action.
Yeah, that's something I fortunately figured out and learned, a while ago, and it was really helpful whenever I did figure that out. And it happened actually I used to work in record stores a lot, being into music, and I kind of like realized that people would put on an album, and employees in there would say, oh, that sucks, or oh, that's great, it's the best album, someone would put on another album, someone would say, oh, that sucks, that album sucks, oh, it's the best album. And then, people that worked there would get anxiety about the music they were going to play, like when it was their turn to play something, because they were worried about it. And I was kind of like, oh yeah, I guess like, and also like reviews of my albums, I've been pretty lucky, like people have liked them, but it's like, everyone's always going to have something negative to say about you, your life, like everything you're doing. Someone's always going to have something positive to say, and they kind of cancel each other out. It's like everyone's going to have a perspective on what you're doing, and you can take like positive feedback from some of those perspectives, or negative, like constructive criticism, but to take them seriously, I think is a big mistake, because like you're saying, like Bodie Miller skiing out or doing really well, and then someone saying, oh, you did great, and he doesn't feel good about it. I can certainly relate to that, in that I think that is just that's kind of not the curse per se, but that's just kind of one of the part of the condition of being someone who's trying to achieve something. Because you are aware in your subjective mind, like the potential, the possibility, and where you wanted to be. It's like a comedian that goes up there and does an entire set and like kills it, and then they get off and everyone's like, oh, that was so great, but then they forgot, or they messed up like one word on one joke, and they feel terrible. And it's like someone, like I used to be in bands.
Most of the best ones are like that. And I was just actually talking to Rogan about that, and he was saying how it took him about 4 months. One time during a set, he dropped a glass of water, and the glass of water fell off the stool and was on the ground, and he just kind of ignored it, and just tried to let it be. But he said his comedy just went downhill because he didn't address the glass of water, and it became like the elephant in the room. He said like for 4 months he obsessed about that. And this guy's prolific. He's out there every day doing different comedy, but that one thing
he literally like spilled his confidence into
exactly.
the world.
So and I think there's a big perfectionist element. But to go back to what we were saying, not to get off topic, is I experienced the same thing as well. I was working at Fleshlight.
Oh, really?
I was working at Fleshlight, and people would be like, "Oh, congratulations, that's great. Yeah, I had a good salary and a good, a pretty good job, and a house and stuff like that." But the congratulations, I would never take them to heart. Like
the house that Fleshlight's built.
Okay. I mean, I played my part. I did some good things there, but it wasn't like I knew that wasn't actualizing a fraction of what I was able to bring to bear. So, the difference between that and then getting compliments. Now it's like, okay, now I can accept the compliments for on it. Like, I put a lot of blood and sweat and into this, and I feel like it is a fair representation of what I'm trying to bring to the world. But at the same time, you can't even take the positive stuff that's right, even that seriously. You just kind of, it wasn't really, this is just what you were here to do, and you're just, to get too excited about yourself for doing what you're almost supposed to do, and what the universe has allowed you to do, and the muse has inspired you, and all of these other forces. You can't take too much credit for any of it. And just like you can't get too bummed out when it goes south. I know I have plenty of detractors out there, that will write crazy, ridiculous things about me. And for a while, it put me into like a like a pretty bad place. And I was like, what the fuck? Because I never had people like hate me who didn't know me.
Yeah.
You know, and I was like, why do these people hate me? You know, I haven't done anything to them. I'm not trying. I'm trying to put positivity out in the world. You know, I've made some mistakes, sure, but this hate, you know, I was feeling it. And then I realized it's just the same. You can't, they don't know what you're actually doing, just the same as the people who are complimenting you know. Sometimes they'll accidentally correspond with what's right, you know, but it's more of a lucky guess than, or maybe they have true insight, you know, like your close friends have true insight. But more of the time, they just happen to coincide, you know, by a coincidence. And it's really you that knows whether you're doing right, whether you're doing well, or whether you're not. And it doesn't matter by what you have. All of the other things that people measure it by, money, your girl, your car, your house, all that is just bullshit. You know, you know, if you, no matter what position you're in, if you were kicking ass and you were doing everything that you can do, then fucking right on to you. You know, don't worry about what everybody else is saying.
Yeah,
that's the key.
Totally. I mean, you know, I would deduce it for myself even more than that, you know, in the sense that, like, if I do things that, you know, I think I've done well, then I don't really feel anything. You know, I just, it's kind of a, you know, it's not really, it just feels like I fulfilled that purpose.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
It's like, oh, well, I spent, you know, I got, developed an entire system of composition that replicates the natural structure of the universe. I got 5, you know, musicians, showed them this system of composition I designed, had them perform this piece that replicates the self-organizing process of the universe, had them perform it, record it, took the, you know, bowed vibraphone, double bass, cello, guitar, piano, mixed all of those pieces down from a studio recording, mixed it myself in my studio, mastered it, done, boom, there's this new piece of, like, these 2 20-minute long ensemble.
Did you actually do that, by the way?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
These acoustic ensemble pieces. I don't feel good about it. You know, it's just a thing that entered my brain that I thought this needs to be expressed and like it needs to occur. It's like something that needs to happen, and so I just made it happen. And you know, people like it, and I haven't released it yet. I'm going too soon, but people they've heard it, really like it, and I've performed that live with that ensemble, and people have been really into it. And I'm just like, I'm glad you enjoyed it. You know? Because it's like I don't feel, and the same thing with like negative things, you know, either in your life or in general. Fortunately, you know, I've learned a really important thing about life, you know, and I'm only 30, you know, and but I think something I've learned in the last, you know, 5 years or so is that as you get older, you really start to know what you like, and you start to know how you want to live your life. And a very important thing is to build that life that you want, you know, and make smart decisions in the sense that who you're around, what you do with your days, you know. I only really associate with like a very small, you know, tight-knit group of people, you know, and I don't go out like every night. I don't go out. Sometimes I don't, well, I mean, at least, you know, once a week or something, but I'm not going out every single night trying to party and do this or that and meet a bunch of people and stuff, because I think that's a recipe.
You know yourself.
Yeah, it's a recipe for chaos too, man. You know, it really is. Like if there's, because you know, the world out there is pure chaos, and if you're just, you know, shooting, you know, the harpoon of yourself into these different like balls of chaos, like obviously you're going to get caught up in that.
Well, you're half harpoon and half whale, you know, giving a broadside for the harpoons of others.
Yeah.
You know,
so the point is like, you know, you surround yourself with important people to you where the energy flow is correct, you know, and it's like there's people that have downward energy flows where every time they're around you, you feel like you're giving. There's people that have upward energy flows where if you're around them, you feel like you're getting from them. And there's people that have parallel energy flows where if you're with them, you're building each other. And those are the people that I associate with.
Absolutely. I think that's absolutely crucial. I'm going to go back to something that you said because it reminded me of something that my friend Matt Vengren, who's a poker pro, told me. And he was talking to, he has someone that he really looks up to, and he is kind of a mentor for his poker. And you know, basically, he said that when you're a pro, you know, and when you're ready to be a champion, and you win a huge event, you know, you're not going to feel that kind of elation that you feel now when you win an event. You know, at the point when you're at that level where you're ready mentally, you know, and spiritually and physically and everything to win a major event, to be at that professional level and achieve that. You know, when you do it, you'll feel like that's just what you were meant to do. So you're not going to be like crazy elated and
Yeah.
through the moon, like, holy shit, look at this, look at me, bitches. You know,
that's the lottery winner,
right?
You know?
Exactly, that's a lottery winner. It's this like unexpected thing, and I've kind of, you know, I've been on a very kind of gradual curve towards doing things as well, and when I achieve something that I'm very proud of, you know, it's almost like you were saying with your piece, it's like, okay, you know, I did it, and you have like a warm sense of like, I'm in sync with what I was supposed to do. And but it's just not this like elation, like, oh shit, you know, look what I just did.
Because that is ego.
Right.
You know? And I think that whenever you realize something that you imagined, that is the, you know, ego doesn't have anything to do with that. You know, that's a matter of, as we've talked about, following the steps, you know. And, you know, whenever things I work on, you know, myself that don't work out, like, I don't feel bad about them. I just, that thing I was trying to create, or that thing I was trying to do, it didn't work out. And it doesn't matter. And the same thing with life. It's if you're trying to put something together in life and it doesn't work out, it doesn't matter. It didn't work out. And if it does, it also doesn't matter. But it's nice that you were able to get into the sync of your pattern in the universe, you know. Yeah. And if you know, zoom out a few clicks on that a little bit more, you know, then really, like, that's the matter of your entire life. Like, your entire being, your entire existence, to me, has the same variable on, you know, positivity, negativity, all those things as we do about the creation. Because really, when you're creating something or like building a project, that's just an extension of your being. Mm-hmm. And I think that if you look where that comes from, you can realize that your existence is actually just as inconsequential, has a negative context, but you're basically a very tiny piece of a huge system. You know, it's like your fingers on the hand of this huge thing that's so incredibly complex that you couldn't even possibly imagine. Yeah. And so,
but you still got to be open to that. You still got to receive the impulse from that big machine. That big machine, people have called it God, people call it the universe, people call it destiny, people call it all kinds of things. But you know, very few people allow that to flow through them, you know. And I think that's the key. It's not about, you know, you really have to find what that machine, what God, what the universe, whatever you want to call it, what that, you know, how that can flow through you and create fulfillment in your life. And being open to that and understanding that is something that people have a real challenge doing.
Well, let's call it the hand, you know. So if the hand is the entire system and you are one of the fingers, whenever the hand picks up, you know, a cup, a coffee mug, you know, the middle finger doesn't feel any better or worse than the ring finger. Mm-hmm. They're just both part of the same process, performing the same function, but they're really just extensions of the hand, which are extensions of the body. Right. And that's how every human being is in relation to the entire cosmos. You know, we are the fingers of the hand of this universe. And the thing that's on the arm of, who knows, you know? And that's why living is fun. That's why, like,
totally. That's why there's magic in it.
Yeah, that's why there's magic. And so the idea that if you feel like you're failing, if you feel like you're doing something positive, that's great. But the most important thing is to get in sync with the blood flowing into that finger from that hand. You know, because whether you realize it or not, like, we're all accomplishing something. Like, there is no goal, there's no chore in all of this. The state of existence is relevant only to the nature of being. It's like, if we are here, if you are awake, if there is a light within your body, then you've accomplished your goal. And what you do...
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I'll let you finish.
And what you can choose to do after that is up to you. And you can do things that you feel like can make that finger stronger, or you can do things, you know, to feel like you make it weaker. Right. It's really up to you. But the purpose behind it all isn't relevant to just the person. Like, we are, like, all of the way I've thought about it before is, like, if there was a giant octopus inside the world, I think I may have talked about this on a podcast before, but if there's like a giant octopus inside the world and all of the tentacles had like 6 billion tentacles sticking out, you know, all of those tentacles are all of the people, like if they're coming out of the crust of the earth, you know. Right. And so essentially we're all part of the same system. And now you can choose to do what you see as good and constructive, or you can choose to see what you do is negative or bad. But I think that well,
I think some people, all right, so here's the problem I have with that analogy, and I kind of see where you're going with it. But the problem is that the choices that you make, like if you have the tentacles on a tentacle, if one tentacle gets very motivated to do something bad, they can fuck up so much. Like take a Hitler, for example. You would think like, oh, that little tentacle, if he decides to go bad, who cares? There's another billion.
No, I didn't say who cares.
Well, I mean, but in that analogy, right?
Yeah.
But I think we have the effect to create. I look at it like imagine the world was dark and all of us are little lights, and the idea is to get the whole world to light up, and you get the whole world to light up by sharing, positivity, life, getting positive energy to flow, and however much you do, you can have a whole light that expands, just your home. Let's say that just your home lights up in the world, and that's great. You made a happy family, you pass that on, other people who interact with you. It's like a little glowing dot, and if everybody had little glowing dots, perfect. But there's a lot of houses that are dark and a lot of people that are dark, so some people are going to have the opportunity, like Rogan, for example. He's one of them that's spreading a big light,
he's like
through his podcast.
Nuclear reactor.
Yeah, exactly. So he's like lighting up a bunch of it. And then there's other people who can cause, massive areas to go dark, like the government, whatever reptilian machination is behind some of these laws and rules and control mechanisms, and some of the corporations like Monsanto, they're regularly dampening the light switches on all of these kind of things. So I think there's more influence, but I do think it's not just, you've achieved your purpose by being alive. I think the purpose is to create light. Like you got to light some shit up. I don't care if it's yourself and you're living in a hut in the mountains and you're thinking and expanding. You don't have to do anything for everybody else. I'm not saying you have to be altruistic in your motivations. You can do it just for you. You can go out, bathe in the stream every day, eat fish. You're still a little light in the world, but if you're doing that and that's fine. But other people will have their family unit, and then other people have broader. I think I've effectively covered that point. But the point being is you should be spreading light, not ignorance, not hate, not doing any little thing that you're doing, like a guy who's victimizing his girlfriend, is just forcing darkness in a being that could be full of light, or someone who's sitting away and hammering hate on a fucking message board, and just calling people out and spewing negativity. They're dampening these lights all around the place. And I think that's a direct antithesis of what we're here to do. And then the question then is, how do you get your light to shine as bright as possible? And if you want to spread that, how far you want to spread that. Do you want to just have it in your family? Great. That's no better or worse. Some people have different callings. Some people have different motivations. But the idea, I think, has got to be to use that analogy, and strictly, mind you, I'm just using this in an analogy. I'm not talking about light in this kind of esoteric, magical, new age sense, but just in this analogy, how are you going to light up your space?
Yeah, I think that I agree with everything you said. But maybe you misunderstood. When I was talking about that earlier, I was talking about the notion of self-worth.
Yeah.
Not a notion of what, people that don't feel confident or comfortable or positive about themselves or what they're doing in their life. My point about the tentacles thing and the finger on the hand was that just the fact that you're here is your self-worth. You're here. You are awake.
Right.
That's good. You've done, you've dodged the 1 in 1 billionth chance that your consciousness could exist whatsoever. So don't feel bad about what you think you are, or where you are in your life. And then the next step is everything that you were talking about.
Right.
The tricky thing about that is that I've run into is that everyone's perception of what that light is, or that positive energy, is different. And some people could think that just sitting on the couch drinking soda and watching TV all day that's their form of positive. Yeah, man, I'm doing it. This is positive. I'm killing it, man. I'm not, my mom isn't bothering me, whatever. Yeah. Whatever, or my dad isn't bothering me. I'm just sitting there watching TV, man. This is it, And so it's a tricky thing to try and make people aware, because a lot of people don't want to be aware of that, and it's an easy thing to forget whenever you spend your days thinking about that type of thing. They don't want
to be aware because they don't know it.
Yeah, no,
you know what I mean? It's
totally.
not. I think there's a calling for all of us to become awake and enthusiastic. I mean, there's so many numbing agents, and I think it's a very complicated topic, but
Yeah.
so many things are designed to distract
Yeah.
and numb you. Television distracts, alcohol numbs,
Yeah, I was calling.
all kinds of things are designed to do both of those. But basically, I think it's to distract you and numb you from your intrinsic calling to create light, to create something positive. And you create all of these mind, distractions and games and justifications to kind of make it okay to do that. And I think, so people's self-worth, sometimes they're getting negative self-worth for no reason, like you said, like they're just, it is enough to be alive and be awake. Like that's, you're just as special as anybody else in that star.
And that's my point.
Yeah. Right. And I'm with you 100%.
It's all okay, everybody.
Yeah.
I'm serious. Like
Yeah.
people are like very fragile and very like uncomfortable. And there's these roller coasters on a daily basis of people not feeling like they're doing what they need to be doing. And it's all like socially imposed. It's like, everyone, you're all okay. Don't just relax. Take deep breaths. Like you're good. You're awake. You're here. Like we're all awake and we're part of this beautiful system. Like it's fine. Just relax.
I think that's good advice. Very soothing.
Yeah. Everybody just relax.
Very soothing. But I also I'm a little harder than you.
Yeah. This is
like
true.
I guess I'm like the tough parent.
This is true
because I'm saying that yes, take that, relax. First step. Breathe. Everything's cool. But then you got to know that if you're doing the work and if you're doing everything that you should do, and don't judge it by anybody else. I don't care what your profession is. I don't care what it is. You got to know whether inside yourself you're doing what you believe you should do. And I think Stephen Pressfield talks about this in all of his books, War of Art and Turning Pro, which I just read.
I read that. I didn't really care for that book.
Really? Yeah, I loved it.
I know a lot of people like it.
And the Turning Pro I love too. It's amazing book. But I think I guess because we have I have a more kind of aggressive concept, whereas, and I think both are right. We're both getting at the same area. But for me, I like what Pressfield is saying, because Pressfield is saying that inside all of us, we have a calling, and a potential to whatever it may be. It doesn't matter. It could be a simple task, like Bertrand Russell talked about the happiness of a groundskeeper whose job was to keep the rabbits away from the garden.
Love
and he
that guy.
found like true happiness from his book, The Conquest of Happiness. He was one of the happiest people Bertrand Russell knew, because every day he would go out and he would look for the rabbits. And when he defeated the rabbits that day, he was successful, and that was his challenge, and that was his deal, and that's fine. If your life is defeating the rabbits, and you can take pride in that, and you can bring that, and have a nice little, hearth at home, and defeat the rabbits every day. Great,
you're in accord with.
You're in
Tao,
accord, but so many
Tao.
people, exactly. But so many people are not doing that. They're falling into the trap of, whatever it is. And you just got to find that. You got to open yourself up first. And that's one of the reasons why I'm such a proponent of psychedelics, is psychedelics can help at least open up that possibility to what you could and should be doing, because it's so hard. Everything is so nebulous. I was talking to my girl about this, and, we were talking, I have this book, it's called Path of the Warrior, and it's these short little kind of Bushido quotes and stories about that. And it says she pulled one out. We read one before bed, and she got the one that said, "The warrior shows his sword," and and it's, you show your sword to your enemy, you howl, you scream, you show that, and then the enemy leaves, and you can pull your sword away, and you can avoid the fight that way, by creating this. So that's kind of a warrior maxim, right?
It's like a gang member pulling his shirt up and
exactly, and it avoids a gun battle because everybody knows, or even this kind of, like a nuclear, even in a nuclear level, which is obviously awful, but the fact that both people show, that what they
self-assured destruction.
We're not going to do that. But
mutually self-assured.
So that's kind of like it's a warrior maxim, but even getting to her and how this will apply is, ask her, all right, what's your enemy? And then what's the sword? And so, basically at the end of kind of figuring it out and puzzling it, the enemy was not knowing which direction she should go, what she should do, how she should attack her destiny, and that was the challenge. That was the enemy. And her sword, which could defeat the enemy, was her work ethic. She's like, once she had a project, she was confident that she would see it through to the end and excel in it. And so I think that's a case that a lot of us are in. not that we're not willing to work hard, but we just don't know what the hell to do.
I think that's most people.
That's most people. That was me. That was me fucking a few years ago.
And you know what the irony is that like people have tell me here and there, just because, you know, I've got there's a lot of projects going on. You know, I've always doing the label and doing, you know, my own music and doing mastering and audio work and like a lot of projects. And, you know, I've always got stuff lined up, and, you know, people will tell me, man, you know, you've got so much stuff lined up and it's all going on. I wish I had like stuff, you know, as many projects happening.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, man, I don't feel any like better. Like it doesn't, I don't, you know, I don't feel any better from having those things lined up or like having like this direction or whatever. It's just like, it's just this train track thing where it's just this path, you know. And
but you're on the path.
Oh, I know.
That's actualizing. So for you, you're like, you know.
But yeah. Well, the point is that it's like, it's not about like striving towards a thing. It's being like finding now, you know. And you have to like liberate yourself from the future and the past, you know, because like the past is something that happened back there that you talk about now, and the future is something that's abstract that could, you know, it's a system of potentialities that could happen. But the only thing, you can only talk about those things in the present, you know. So therefore, the only thing that exists is the present. And so, in order to, you know, feel like you're in accord with the cosmos and with the universe, you have to liberate yourself and free yourself from the notion of, you know, past, future, and just be one with where you are now. And then whenever you can do that, things will fall into place. Like things, I truly believe that if you can find like the present moment, then you're becoming a part of the grand system. And whenever you do that, like the universe starts building scaffolding around you, because it's like a mineral or something building up, you know? And so that's like, I think that you're like the rock climber, you know. You get on that mountain, that mineral I'm talking about. Yeah. And you're like, I'm going to climb up to the top, and I'm going to like, you know, find out what's up there, and I'm going to do this and that. And I think that, you know, perhaps I feel like the way of like, I'll like just find a crack of the mountain, climb in there, and let like the mineral seal over and then become a part of the mountain. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's like we're still, you know, both becoming one with the mountain, but it's just in two different ways. And I think that like,
well, you're on a personal, I mean, I think to understand, we probably both have pretty dramatic personal backgrounds. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, for me, it was always a highly competitive athlete, you know, like it was very like this, you know, striving, constantly achieving, competing kind of mentality. And then for you, I know you're very well versed in meditation and those practices of kind of letting things come. And both are very viable ways. You know, you can either attack and press and find, you know, keep pushing on these paths till you find the one where you're in accord. But ultimately, the end result is the same. Yeah. You know, you get to a place where you're in accord and you're in harmony, and the tune that you're making coincides with the tune that the universe had in mind when they set your pitchfork. Yeah, you know, when they set your individual tune, you find it. You're in the right tune.
Appreciate that music analogy.
Yeah, for sure. So you find that right tune, and it's just different ways that people go about getting there. And I think, you know, one way, like you said, is be in the now. You know, find stillness, quiet the other thoughts, and, you know, let the path kind of find you, because just notifying that the path, the tune, your tune, keep using this analogy, which I like.
Do it.
Your tune is around you all the time. So if you can find the now, find stillness, then, you know, you will eventually start to hear it. Mm-hmm. And once you start to hear it, you will find yourself adhering to it and becoming part of it. And then you will be on your path. And maybe that's one of the best ways. Certainly the way, you know, part of doing, and I think the psychedelics can really open that out. They can remove all of the shit that you have going on in your ears, and all of a sudden you can hear that tune crystal clear, and it's like, oh shit, that's my tune. Like I hear that tone, I hear that pitch, you know, and you can remember that and then know and feel that again. So I think that's one way that you can get there, is through doing that. Another is just quieting through meditation. Another is, you know, trying to put yourself to different pitches and tones yourself, you know, which was certainly a way that I was trying as well. It's just try this, and then all of a sudden you'll kind of hone in, like, okay, it's somewhere between this this energy level and this occupation and this one.
Yeah, you're just feeling out your harmony.
Yeah, you're feeling out your harmony, exactly. And then you finally find it, and then it's like, oh shit, it's starting to gel.
You got a deep groove going on.
Exactly.
Now,
So that's I guess that's the way to kind of find that and solve that problem that so many people have is where should I put my energy? And also you have to realize too that sometimes you're not quite ready for your pitch, your opportunity yet. And your key is just to keep growing and experiencing consciousness and just, relaxing, and your opportunity will come. You may be too young. You may be too young for that fully fulfilling, final life destiny goal, but find a little thing that is within harmony, find little pockets that you can do, whether it's some creative endeavor or something, until you find maybe the master track. I guess would be my advice.
Yeah, and just being like honest with yourself too helps a lot.
Yeah,
it's like, and I mean the symptom to that I will say that everything has its weights and balances. And I think that for me anyway, the symptom of being on that or feeling like I am on that path a bit, is if you can kind of meta think yourself into existential paralysis. That's a real easy symptom to get into, and where you basically just like sitting there thinking, okay, well,
lots of people don't know that they're meta thinking themselves into existential paralysis.
That's one of my problems. I was like, okay, well, I'm here. I'm this fleshy meat sack stuck to this planet. Floating in the middle of the universe, like. It's all basically just feels like a theater play where it's like you're just going through these motions and you're a part of this huge giant grand act, and you can really get into that thing of like, well, it is, I could just simply just wake up and then go to sleep for the next 30 years too. That's also a very easy thing to do. It's like if you're present, if you're just here, then it's a simple trap to fall into. So
is that a challenge that you particularly find yourself facing? Like when you're down, when you personally, Cory Allen, are feeling bummed out, is that generally the way that it comes to you?
Always. That's always how I feel bummed out, or I start feeling not motivated or slightly negative. And it's not even negative. It's just hopeless. Where it's like everything is so complex and so magnificent and so infinite. That I think it's that last string of the ego that like connects all of the parts of the body together, kind of going, you know what? I don't need to be here anyway. Like this room is beautiful without my silly meat sack in it. I can just kind of back up into the background and just let this whole thing continue and just watch this pretty show until the shockwave of my human form vibrates and goes back into the layers of the universe, And so
how do you combat that then?
Well, I'm kind of like I feel like I'll typically after a couple of days I'll just kind of perk back up again, because it's just not in my nature to stay in that mindset for too long. But I think it's like I start thinking about, oh yeah, well, like I was talking to this with a friend of mine recently. It's like you can count on like a leaf growing out of a tree branch, but you can't count on the edges of that tree branch or that leaf, what the edges of that leaf looks like. I think that like the edges of that leaf are just a consequence of like leafiness. And I think that in your life, like you can count on the fact that you're alive right now and that you're awake, but you can't count on what all the edges and the the details of that life are going to be, because that's just a consequence of life.
Yeah.
And whenever I start feeling too, existentially paralyzed, I realize that I'm just looking a little too closely at the edges of that leaf.
Yeah.
And think, okay, maybe it's just you got to hop back in the pool a little bit, start swimming again.
Yeah, I guess for me, my challenges come. I don't feel that. I always feel like I have a charge. Like I have a duty, and my duty is to my fellow humans, to the earth, to future Earths that our species may interfere with, whatever it is, is to make an effective change. When I get super bummed out is when I feel not so much like, like my presence wouldn't matter so much. That's maybe I used to have that in a while, and that's kind of like a self-defeating kind of oh, woe is me, you know, I suck kind of belief. But I haven't had that in a while. But it's really like, you know, I can get a feeling like, and I think it really happens when I, you know, receive a lot of negativity, and for me it's like, man, fuck these people, you know what I mean? Like why should I be putting myself out there, you know, taking these harpoons and taking these shots and pulling spitballs out of my hair, you know, like fuck it, you know. But when I say that, I get like really bummed out because at that point it's like the universe is being like, hey, dumbass, like that's not the truth. There's a ton of good people and a ton of positive people, and you know, you're supposed to be doing something to, you know, at least lift a little bit of ignorance, to share a little light, you know. And so I'll get super depressed when I get in that kind of negative mind frame about, you know, my fellow people. And that's why, you know, I mean, I do get, you know, a ton of positive support too. And, you know, part of my mind frame is to take the positive and the negative with a grain of salt and judge myself. But it does help, you know, hearing those positive things and getting some feedback and knowing that you are making something. But that's not the key. You got to just know that you're doing the best that you fucking can.
Yeah, and whenever you have that tight, and you associate with that group of friends that you trust, I was talking about, whenever you get in those states, that's what they're there for. You know, it's like I've, you know, talked to my friends about this very thing. Whenever they feel like that, it's like we're all walking in this group together. Whenever someone falls down, like you help them get up, and whenever you fall down, they're going to help you get up again. They're going to cheer you up again and get you back on the track. Because I think that feeling that you're talking about feeling a bit uninspired, you can see, you know, the brilliance and ignorance of humanity are both glaring. You know, and
it's true.
If you happen to catch more of the reflection of the negative side, it's very defeating. You know, it's very defeating. Look at, you know, if you look at West Africa, Korea, you know, the Middle East, it's like, it's immobilizing, you know, to think about. And, you know, it's easy to turn on a bunch of like Austin hipsters onto the notion of like awareness and consciousness, but to penetrate, you know, something that's so scabbed as some of those, you know, intense patristic, you know, cultures, it's quite a task. And the same thing with me. You know, basically it's a matter of just zooming out so many clicks that I just go, wow, I like seeing the vantage point of the world and the universe from such an alien perspective. You know, it's that thing of whenever you look into the abyss looks back at you. You know, it's like, look how complex and empty that thing is. Not empty in a negative way, but it's just so much space and so much like detail and everything. And then you look, you know, you can see that within yourself and go, wow, you know, I have just as much space and just such as much infinity, and like there's, you know, so many things and people on this planet, and so much happenings all simultaneously, that like, you know, just being this tiny little fleck of salt within this huge system, you know, can be paralyzing. So you feeling, you know, uninspired to help people, me feeling like an alien and totally disembodied. I think that those things are kind of like, it's being road weary on the path, you know, and that's just a part of like our nature. Like that happens to the earth, you know, it's like, so whenever you're chugging along in your path and you're following your process and doing what you need to be doing, or, you know, you feel in accord with your surroundings and your meaning, then it's just natural to get a little road weary, and you got to pull over at a rest stop, man, and you know, take a little nap and get some food and get charged up again, and then go back out there, and you can catch up the ground you lost while you're sleeping. You just got to break the speed limit a little bit. You know, but you can catch up there.
I hear you 100%, man. I think that's a great way to look at it. And so some of the ways to make that, you know, to bring that analogy back to life, some of the things that re-inspire me is, you know, like if I just go, well, nature will sometimes do it. It's a good regrounding. But as far as people, you know, if you just go and just kind of be invisible for a little while and just be amongst in like a positive environment, you know, in a concert, just go by yourself where you don't have to talk to anybody, and just observe people and try and imagine their lives. And I did that actually this weekend out in LA. I was at this music festival, Sunset Music Festival, and it was cool. And I was just there by myself and just kind of observing people, like being happy, and then some people, you know, having little challenges that they're dealing with, whatever. But like, just get a feel, because we have no sense of tribe anymore. You know, it's like our close group, which we feel like are the only people we could get along with in the world, you know, because we meet so many people that we're so different from, you know, and so we have our close friends, but they're almost like they don't count, you know, because we feel like we've kind of sought them out and created this little group, but to get a sense of just people in general, I think is important, because we used to have that. We used to have that kind of tribal community feel. We don't have that anymore, but so you got to broaden that out to just feeling your fellow brothers and sisters, your fellow man, you know, mankind, and just kind of getting a sense for them in a positive way. And then I think that for me is part of what helps reset that kind of vigor, or hearing about some, you know, injustice that's going on of like a real victim, like fuck, gotta go do that. yeah that'll get me back up. But that's my rest stop, I guess.
I saw this great that's great I saw this great episode of Louis. You ever seen that before? Louis C.K.
I've seen his comedy show.
He has his show called Louis. It's great.
I haven't seen it.
He kind of plays himself, and it's this, you know, deconstruction of like his, you know, human condition as he sees it. It's beautiful. Anyway, there's one moment where he kind of like always has said that he doesn't like Florida, and he finds like Miami just like he doesn't like it. So in this episode, he goes down there, and then there's like a Cuban guy working at the bar he's performing at or something, and then like Louis is feeling down, and they're kind of like chatting a little bit, and then the Cuban guy is like, hey, why don't you come hang out with me afterwards? And he's like, all uncomfortable, like any typical, like, or like most white Americans, hang out with a stranger? Like, that's not very, you know, like going back to the tribe thing.
Yeah.
So he ends up like going in, this guy's just like so warm, takes him to his house, like he's partying with his family, they're like eating and stuff, and Louis is just like, he can't believe how warm and like inviting, and there's like, you know, 50 people in this guy's family, and they're and his friends, and they're all just having a great time, and they're all poor, like they're living in this, you know, kind of you know, lower you know, economic space in Miami, and Louis is just blown away, and then he looks up, and there's a bunch of sky rises, you know, across the highway or whatever, and he's kind of staring at it, and the Cuban guy's like, man, you know, it's you know, look at that, and the sad thing is you know, you look up there, I look up there all the time, and there's rich people, but they're sitting up there alone on the balcony, man.
Yeah.
You know, and you can tell it's like Louis chewing on that and turning it over in his head, and just like, wow. You know, and then it of course devolves into something really hilarious, and Louis likes to like make a point and then like
make it silly.
Ridiculous. Yeah.
Makes sense.
But I think that's a good point with all of us, is like, you know, people get so like hypnotized by the illusions that are out there and the distractions, and they forget those sense of like, you don't need anything, you don't need like stuff, or, you know, if that to feel connected and to feel human and to have your tribe, you know, and to have that tribe is something very important, because you can work and feel like you're doing good. You could be a doctor and all this, and, you know, helping people and making a lot of money, but if at the end of the day you're sitting up on that balcony by yourself, you know, you're not in the right place. You know.
Yeah, it's true. You know, you build a fortress around yourself, literally, in so many cases with, you know, the houses and the places that you do, and you can end up creating further isolation. And, you know, I think there's a risk to that. Yeah. You know, I mean, I think there's a real warmth and a happiness. That's why if you look at the happiness scale, you know, a lot of these poor villages and poor places, because they're all working together, they're all, you know, coming together for little festivals and events and helping each other out. And if one person's got a little more food this week than the other one, come on over, you know, and there's that real sense that I think for us to move forward in this new era that we're heading into, you know, that I think is more coincidentally occurring with 2012 rather than causally coming from 2012. But whatever, it is an interesting coincidence. But I think we are entering a new level, and that new level is going to have to be an embrace of strangers and helping other people out and being, you know, part of a tribe once again, even if that tribe is massively expansive.
There's this weird dichotomy that's happening with the internet too, because like with us talking about being symbol-based creatures, it's like that's how we understand our entire reality, is that we apply our symbols that we've put on things from past experience or from what we've been taught growing up or what we've taught ourselves. And that's how we create our entire worldview, is based on all of these symbols. And it's been going on for like, thousands of years. You can look at like the Egyptians. Those are all symbol based, even if it's blatant, of course. But here it's like you murdered your car. That's a symbol. You know what I mean? It's like anything as simple as that is a symbol. And with the internet, it's like there's so many, there's 3 levels of like brain consciousness function, like reptilian, mammalian, and then the upper function,
Right.
So it's like we started with this reptilian, we evolved to mammalian, and we got our upper frontal lobes. But then there's this extra piece where it's like they say there's the 7th chakra that actually exists above the head.
Yeah, the Viracocha.
Yeah, and so
and that's our connection to the infinite, the connection to our divine self.
that's exactly where I was going with this.
Yeah.
So we have this levels of consciousness, but the chakra that exists outside of the body, the connection to the infinite, is, I think, in this weird technological way, we're doing that with the internet. It's like the internet is like a non-local collective consciousness, because all the internet is basically systems and symbols that people are putting into that, and they're replicating their realities by putting their symbols into the system. So that's evolving as a non-local collective consciousness of the infinite based on everyone's like non-local mind. So we're replicating our entire universe by creating the internet.
Sounds very Ray Kurzweil, what you're trying to say. But I hear what you're saying.
So the problem is that like the sense of community exists on the internet, like something like Rogan's message board or like podcasts or all these things, and that's really great. Because but it's an abstract symbol-based thing that doesn't really exist in the
in the
right
real world.
in front of you in the real world,
and it has rules that don't apply to real world behavior. People can be so, as Joe calls it, cunty on the internet, when you can't be like that in life.
Exactly.
You can't walk up to someone and stalk all that shit about them to their face. First of all, you'll see them get sad, and then you'll get bummed out, even if you could kick their ass. And if you can't kick their ass, well, maybe they'll kick your ass. Like either way. But just the simple fact of, if you said that and you actually saw a person get sad, then it's like different. But you just throw it out there on the message board, and it's in this kind of symbol-based system.
It's because it allows you, whenever there's like a forward flow only with output, and there's no like reciprocity there, like on the internet, you can just put stuff out and then turn it off and go do whatever you're gonna do. But it's like it gets really deep with the human psyche. It's like you got this ice cream scoop and you're just scraping the bottom of the human consciousness and the psyche, and just flinging those scoops out into the internet, and then you carry on about your day because it doesn't bounce back because you've left. But the point is that like a lot of people are finding their community on the internet, and that is great. But you certainly shouldn't forget about the fact that like having that in person is possible and very, very important.
Absolutely. It's like building your character in World of Warcraft versus building your character in real life. Or any kind of, I think there's, that's cool and that's fun, but you got to realize that, the internet is almost like, even though it's almost like a World of Warcraft game. It's not different. The real world rules and things you create don't necessarily apply. I think it's important to get out there and, build up your human self and build up your human connections and build up and keep that going. And, talk to people on the phone instead of just text them. Like see people for lunch, see people for coffee. Like,
I have
connect.
Two people that I meet for lunch with every single week. Some of them have been going on for years. And I've a friend I meet with, my label partner, Mike Vanuski, we've met every Wednesday for almost a decade, and it's because that's one of those things that you can help stay on the path and keep your mind straight. And the more you walk down through that jungle with somebody, the more they're going to know you and the more that they can help you. Yeah. I think a cool thing for us to do would be to talk about some of the little tricks in our toolbox, not tricks, but some of our tools that we use to keep our minds tuned in, because I think that's an important key to awareness and to staying positive.
I like that idea, and I think we should do it on the next podcast. We're here a little bit past an hour, and I'm trying to keep them this way. But I think that's key. Is finding these little as you say, you can get weary from the road, but you can also get experience from the road. And, I think both of us have been fortunate enough to find our paths and be on our paths. And, I know there's many of you listening who are on your own paths as well. And, I always appreciate hearing from you. And then there's other people still looking and finding and seeking and searching. And, so any bit of wisdom we can bring, I think is, spreading a little light. And that's what it's all about.
Absolutely. I'll leave people with one very easy thing. It's Thich Nhat Hanh talks about this, is that you can find things in your life that are constant reminders of mindfulness and like presence. And wherever you see those things, take 3 to 10 nice, slow, calm breaths, and that incites more mindfulness. Controlling your breathing, and this is obviously very easy to joke about, but if you take a breath with the same tenderness that you would like hug a small child with, that same gentleness out and in, so these type of things you can see. If you're driving and you see a red light, normally people get annoyed and frustrated because that red light stopped them from their journey, but you're really just present. You forget that you're just there. Even though you're going somewhere in a car, you're still in the present moment. So when you see that red light, let that red light be a bell of mindfulness and go, oh, there's the red light. Instead of getting mad at it, stop and, focus on your breathing while you're there in the car. Whenever you see a stop sign, focus on your breathing. Whenever you hear a sound out, whenever you're walking around and you hear some weird, 18-wheeler, car horn or somebody slam a car door, right. Boom, that's a bell of mindfulness, and take 3 breaths, align your breathing, and become present again. You can set up these little systems to keep your mind tuned in to the frequency of the infinite and the present.
Wise words, Cory Allen. I concur completely. I think I've never heard of that, but it makes a lot of sense. One book I read that I really like is Aldous Huxley's Island. I think he does an excellent job in building a functional utopia that could exist. And the old Raja who set up the kind of island, they trained the birds in the island to say the word attention, or here and now. Which is a very literal application of what you're saying, but they're actually saying attention here and now, which is exactly what you're saying. Find your center, find your presence back to the now. And so if you have a parrot, maybe teach the parrot to say
whenever your oven timer goes off, any sound or any sight that you see, and especially one that could annoy you, in the past, you can change that, turn it around, and have it be a bell of mindfulness.
I like it. Right on, Cory Allen. Well, thank you again. We can find you at Quiet Design on Twitter.
That's right.
And what are your web URLs again?
Check out my music website, Cory, Cory-Allen.com. Check out my record label, quietdesign.us. And I actually started a podcast where I talk to artists about their process, and of course we can't go very long without getting into some type of philosophical conversation. They're very interesting, and that's just the Quiet Design podcast. So you can go to iTunes and check that out. But holler at me on the Twitter at Quiet Design. Like talking to people. All the people that have messaged me off of the last podcast I did with Aubrey have been some great conversations, really cool messages, and I love hearing from you guys. So thanks.
Right on. And that cool intro you hear, by the way, or you will hear on the audio version of this. I haven't figured out how to plug it in myself yet, but that was designed entirely by Mr. Cory Allen as well. Right. So if you enjoy that, it's an example of his fine work. So.
Normally my music is really it's like. It's all what I'm trying to do is basically replicate the structure of the cosmos.
I want to hear that, by the way. I think we should hear that. I'll send out a link or something or some way to get in touch with that kind of that sound, because that sounds pretty amazing.
It's just pure presence, man. It's good for meditation, but it's not meditation music.
I like it, man. All right, Cory Allen. Thanks a lot, brother.
Thanks.
Definitely appreciate it.